Right, hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So it has been a while since I have updated my tier list, and I think going forward I will try to update it on monthly or bi-monthly basis. But a few very quick disclaimers. This is a mixture of my personal view of the game and champions in it, and the current game relevance of these champions and trends, and how frequently we can see them used in Alliance quests and Alliance wars and new harder piece of content. I do not take in consideration how big the yellow number is, or in general, I have a view that if an Iron Patriot can do the same fight, then the fight doesn't really matter when it comes to the relevance of how great the champion actually is. It just shows that you like to use that particular champion, or that, you know, he has very good damage output. We're looking for specific fights, specific hurdles, node combinations where these champions truly shine. Also, each summoner has different needs and preferences that far outweigh the importance of that list, and they are largely based on your own personal gaming habits, what masteries you run, what champions you already have ranked up. For instance, even though, let's say, the Hood might be, you know, in the new tier that they have created, frequently useful tier, but if you don't have any other good Mystic champions ranked up, and if you perhaps frequently run Ghost, who's one of the most powerful champions in a game, then the Hood rank up often is going to be more valuable than Captain America Infinity War or something else that is ranked higher, because you need that champion's toolkit more than you need the one from Cap Infinity War in order to have like a solid representation of ability to nullify or power control or something else. So there are a lot of different things that come in play for each individual player when you choose your rank ups. And this is by no means meant to be some sort of definitive list where this champion is better than the other champion for you. And that's exactly where we go to with the third disclaimer. Please rank champions that will help you where you are trying to get, not by blindly following this or any other type of these lists. As in, if your current focus is, let's say, villain variant, then rank up a champion that happens to be a villain and is a decently good champion over somebody that, you know, might be listed higher here but isn't a villain, because, you know, it's not gonna help you to clear that piece of content. You should always, in my personal opinion, approach MCOC in a problem solution basis. So your problem is inability to clear content or struggling to deal with particular content like Alliance quest, and your rank up should look for that solution to make things easier for you, to enable you to do something that you couldn't before, not necessarily to put up the biggest yellow number or pick the champion that somebody else thinks is better than other champions. Your goal is to solve the problem, which is the content that you need to clear, or prestige that you need to raise, or whatever else that you want to do in the game. That being said, this list only features champions that are available as 6 stars. There is a smaller list here for champions that are not available as 6 stars, because everybody keeps asking, where's Magic, where's Quake, where's blah, where's this, where's that. So as soon as champions are available as 6 stars, I move them up to the generic list. However, at the bottom here, you can still see where I would rank those champions should they be available as 6 stars. So there are several changes. Most notably, I added a new point here where it's frequently useful tier. Now, one of the two biggest things to keep in mind is that in this list, the top 2 tiers are borderline exclusive to the champions that already have been in the game for a bit and have proven themselves to be the go-to solutions for majority of the problems, the kind of like no-brain rank up options, and the champions that, in all honestly, you see in every single piece of content dominating it. These are by far the not only most popular, but the best and most frequently used options. That's what meta effectively stands for. And as in, even among meta, there are champions who are used more frequently, or who are touted to be, let's say, the kings of particular game modes, or the absolutely best at something. Then we have the frequently useful tier, which is the highest tier any new champion will land in at the arrival in the game. And then we have useful, occasionally useful, and useless, borderline unplayable tier. Right. As for the changes in the actual champion rankings, I have moved Hercules up to the top of the game because I do truly believe that he is proving himself in majority of the game modes. And one of the biggest things I think that most people didn't consider initially upon the arrival of Hercules is that he's a cosmic champion that does not rely on debuffs, does not rely on buffs, and is able to inflict a ton of damage without like knocking opponents down, which was a very big part of, let's say, 7.3, which is a part of other game modes or plenty of champion abilities. So obviously he benefits from using special attacks and being able to parry and, you know, apply debuffs on the opponent, especially the taunt-like debuff, Infuriate one. But in general, one of his best qualities is a really, really great damage output that doesn't rely on buffs, debuffs. And that's one of the biggest kind of like trump cards, I think, in the game in general, is because once you actually get to it, there aren't that many champions who can do that. Even if you look at the top 2 tiers, vast majority of those champions heavily rely on buffs and or debuffs, with a couple of exceptions, and that ability not to rely on buffs or debuffs opens champions like Hercules, Ghost, and few others to be as potent and frequently used as they are, because there are a lot of nodes that interact with, you knock the opponent down, they go debuff immune, or, you know, this opponent shrugs off debuffs, there's tenacity, or every time you trigger a buff, then something bad happens. An ability not to do any of those things and still function at a high level is really valuable, more valuable than most people realize, I think. And I think that is kind of like the final reason why Hercules is as high as he is. One champion that I moved slightly down at the moment is Colossus. There was a time and period in the game, especially in Act 6, where Colossus was definitely shining and showcasing himself off, and he still does that. But with the introduction of new nodes, he's not necessarily the go-to option anymore for even me. And at some point I did say, and I would say, that Colossus is the best mutant champion in the game. I still think he's a tremendously great mutant champion, but at the way the game is right now, and the game modes and the nodes that we have in Alliance Quest, Alliance War, new nodes in 7.3, I just don't see him partake as much anymore. He's still capable of doing plenty there though, so he's still definitely, in my opinion, part of meta. Now we have one of the new champions, Kitty Pryde, that I have added to the meta column as well. She's, I believe, the only new champion alongside Hercules that has climbed that high, that quick. And other than that, I think the list is self-explanatory. Hyperion has been released as 6-star, so he's up there. I think the skill top 4 at the moment have cemented themselves as definite top 4. I'm not having much doubts about that anymore. I think it's not even controversial to move Kingpin up there either, because he's just putting in work in every single game mode, and he's an absolute monster. Same as Aegon, Moleman, Nick Fury, all of them have retained their relevance. The one champion that is likely going to move on to the top of the game quite soon is going to be Mr. Fantastic. The more I use that guy, the more he surprises me, and the more versatility is just coming out and out of the guy. And he genuinely does answer so many problems, and every single time I have been using him recently, whether it be that, I don't know, Act 7.3 or Incursions or anything else, he's just pulled another trick out of his pocket. The latest one thing was in a very late incursion room when I had to go against Punisher, which special attacks are, you know, tricky to evade. But one of the things that I often definitely do not consider is the fact that he places as debuffs an opponent whenever they use special attacks, and I was able to block massive special attacks with hardly any damage at all, or just auto evading them. And that is one of the biggest concerns in incursion runs in particular, where if opponents have huge attack values and undexable special attacks, then you can die of block damage alone. Mr. Fantastic just completely took that problem away. It's just one tiny example of why I like this character so much, and I genuinely think that next tier list is probably going to be up there. If anything, maybe I'll swap him with Cap Infinity War, or just add him on top there as well. With tech, we have Ghost and Warlock. Ultron is definitely making a solid case for himself currently in game as well, because he's becoming more and more widely used. And I believe maybe Diablo might be pushing off Sorcerer Supreme as the third best Mystic in the game overall, and he might be moving up to the top of the game as well. So those are the few champions that I want to keep an eye out for in here. Now, frequently used tier is a brand new thing where I added kind of like the more potent champions from the useful tier, the ones that we see more often than not, and I took away few from meta tier. So I moved Namor from meta into frequently useful, and I think one or two more other champions. In general, it's just kind of those champions that are often ranked, often showcased, often beloved, but not necessarily used as widespread as the champions that we discussed before them. They still have extremely good potential uses. For instance, one champion personally that I have been acknowledging more and more, Spider-Ham. I have been enjoying using this guy, and as I am streaming my 7.3 revisit streams, I'm just using the guy more and more, and he just happens to get the job done well enough. Mojo was one of the pleasant surprises, 7.3 as well. He put in quite a lot of work, and rest of these champions, I think very few would dispute their place in here at the moment. There are obviously champions here in useful tier that could move up in future. One of them is Spider-Man 2099. Spider-Man 2099, even though he had a very, very poor reception, from myself included, he is kind of making his comeback largely to his ability to reduce the damage by 75% if the opponent is under effect of True Strike. And that is obviously ever so relevant in Alliance War boss fights, and there are other circumstances where it can come into play, but he's definitely been seeing more and more love. Well, we have Anti-Venom, which I'm not entirely sure yet where to place, obviously, because he's a very, very new addition to the game. There are some very promising things about him. There are some things that I'm not necessarily a fan of. So I think useful is a fairly decent tier to start him off, and then we're going to see how widely he's going to get used into other game modes. Spider-Man Miles Morales, I forgot to mention, has been shining more and more as well at 7.3, where Unblockable is being spammed everywhere. It was an absolute joy to use the guy against a ton of matchups, and it felt like borderline cheating because he just absolutely shredded several of the boss fights and several of the lanes where if opponent is constantly unblockable or spends half the fight unblockable, then Miles can do just filthy things. So I do like it. I have Miles at rank 2. Potentially at some point I'll rank him up higher, even though I think that currently in the game there is not much reason to take champions to rank 3 and rank 4, given how pathetic the stat increase is compared to rank 1 to 2 stat increase. And the only champions that you really kind of want to take up to rank 3 are the champions that affect your prestige, the champions that you're going to be using for Alliance War, offense or defense, and perhaps AQ. When it comes to every other piece of questing, where you can freely use 5 stars, you can freely use 6 stars rank 2, especially 6 stars rank 2, because they still benefit from those Act 7 nodes. So I'm kind of more focused on getting more rank 2 6 stars than I am taking 6 stars to rank 3. I have like 7, I think, tier 5 catalysts that I don't even want to use because I just want to have more rank 2 champions. Because at rank 2 level, they are already playable and usable in pretty much every single game mode. Now, that quick destructive step aside, we have the skill section here. Thor Ragnarok. I know a lot of people will want him to be moved up. I can see that, but here's the thing with Thor Ragnarok. First 40 hits of the fight, or first 30 hits of the fight, he's effectively an Iron Patriot. And that is one huge drawback that I'm not sure that I will personally ever be able to get by. But if we do obviously see him being used more and more, I will move him up higher. I just want to be like, fully transparent with this rank up, because he's a champion that's easy to make look good in fights that can be done easily, if that makes sense. Like, yes, you can stun lock something for a while after that, but to get to those 40 hits, to get to that super god mode, That's a task in itself more often than not. And here we go back to the idea of, I don't care how impressive the champion looks if an Iron Patriot can do that fight. And we have yet to see where he actually is like the top option or one of the top options for some of the kind of like trickiest fights where you can't use your, I don't know, Wasp or anything else that's moderately generic. That being said, we have Nimrod and Penny Parker here in useful tier as well. We have yet to determine where they're exactly going to lie. Penny Parker obviously is an annoying defender for sure, so is Nimrod. But we haven't seen too much like relevant, important use of them offensively, I believe. And moving on to occasionally useful. Now, these are champions that can be used and are used here and there. Nebula is getting a buff, so she might move away soon. These are champions that, if people rank, then it's largely because they just really like those champions, or they have like few very kind of like specific things. Actually, I think Red Goblin probably could be moving up a bit. I think I'm going to do it right now, because I do think Red Goblin has more relevance now because of his ability to benefit from external buffs. And a lot of nodes are coming into play that give you random fury buffs, or they give you any random buffs in general. And you have Odin, and existence of Odin himself has made Red Goblin somewhat of a better champion, in my opinion. But all in all, I know that this list, I had this placement, there's going to be somebody who really, really likes the Overseer, or who really likes Jubilee, and are not going to be happy with it. But this is how I objectively see those champions. And there are many champions that I myself love to use, like Carnage. I think Carnage can be a really great and fun champion. I think Proxima can do good things. I think Terax I recently took up as a 5-star rank 5 just because I enjoyed him so much. And this is not meant to be a diss on the champions at all. I hope people understand that. This is just an acknowledgement that these champions, they might be good at something, they might be, very, very fun, but when it comes to the harder, trickier fights, it's not all that often that you see them, take the spotlight or take the center stage. And again, these champions can potentially do extremely well in any fight where you can use Iron Patriot. Carnage does it, if the fight is fairly long enough. Carnage has some of the most satisfying gameplay ever. It doesn't mean that I think Carnage is the best rank up for Alliance Quest or Alliance War. It just isn't, because he doesn't counter or alleviate the burden of the nodes or capitalize on them too much too often. And all of these champions, are still perfectly adequate rank ups. If you enjoy them, you should always rank champions that you enjoy as well. But I just don't think ability per ability, like point per point, they are as useful as others. And then we have the last section where, we have the duds and completely outdated champion. This entire section effectively is combined with champions who have little to no offensive competitive uses in any game modes. Champions that are either so old and lack abilities and or damage that are borderline unplayable, or more recent champions that just don't measure up. Like Super Skull, 2021 champion, but he's a turd. Like, there is very little good about him in reality, besides like basic immunities or something like that. And then obviously we have the outdated champions like Iron Fist or Doctor Strange now, Juggernaut. All of them do something, but I don't think anybody really would recommend you investing your resources in these champions for any other reason that, they're your comic book favorites or you enjoy them and stuff like that. So that is the change a bit to my tier list. That is a tier list, and this is the game as I see it right now. And if you feel very strongly that some champion should be moved up or down, I welcome constructive feedback, but make it valuable. Don't make it bland. Don't go commenting like, I don't know, MCOC is the best ever. He should be at the very least in frequently useful tier or something like that. Tell me why. Tell me which fights he counters, which game modes he controls. Tell me, like, you know, what makes him more usable than I think those champions are right now. And again, another thing to keep in mind is this is by no means a list to diss any of the champions. For instance, MCOC, I'm myself considering right now to rank up MCOC for a couple of reasons. Number one, I kind of enjoy using him. Number two, I think we might use one on defense. And number three, I rank 3 my crossbones and they have very potent synergy together. So I just hope that examples like this can let you understand my mindset a bit more when I am working on these lists. It's no means saying that these champions are, you know, horrible if I'm not placing them as high as you think they should be placed. It's just where I see them in the game. All right, I think that brings it to the close. So yeah, let me know your feedback. I will try to keep updating these more frequently. Null has not yet been added to this, obviously, because I have very little idea of where Null would land, and if I would have to forcibly push him in initially, I just put him in useful tier, because it's clear that he will have some uses. How many of them remains to be seen. He potentially will land in frequently useful as he's becoming more available, or even meta, or we'll see what happens. Anyhow, now that's it for reals, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information